This morning, you woke up and did something your ancestors could never have imagined. You turned a small metal handle, and clean, warm water magically appeared from nowhere. You squeezed a plastic tube, applied a perfectly engineered minty paste onto a plastic brush, and scrubbed every single tooth. You stood under a cascading waterfall of hot water for 10 uninterrupted minutes, without a single thought. And after all of that, you probably still felt a bit sluggish and needed a fresh cup of coffee to feel human. Now, I want you to imagine stripping all of those modern comforts completely away. No metal handles, no plastic tubes, no running tap water, and absolutely no synthetic materials. It is just you, exposed to whatever the weather decides to do today. And there are 30 other people in your tribe dealing with the exact same harsh reality. This is the unvarnished picture of human hygiene for roughly 300,000 years. But the answer to how ancient humans actually handled their personal cleanliness is not what you think. Let us start with your teeth, because right now, your mouth contains about 700 different species of bacteria. That staggering number does not simply vanish just because you brush your teeth every morning and night. Brushing only keeps that massive bacterial ecosystem under a temporary state of control. Ancient humans obviously did not have access to the advanced dental tools we rely on today. They had no ergonomic toothbrushes, no fluoride toothpaste, no minty floss, and certainly no antiseptic mouthwash. Yet, when modern archaeologists carefully examine the preserved skulls of ancient humans, they discover something shocking. The teeth of our ancient ancestors were often in significantly better condition than your teeth are today. They were not completely immune to dental issues, and their smiles were not perfectly straight, but they were remarkably healthy. A groundbreaking 2013 study published in the prestigious journal Nature Genetics revealed a fascinating truth. Researchers analyzed the microscopic bacteria preserved in the dental plaque of ancient human teeth dating back 7,500 years. They discovered that the diversity of harmful, disease-causing bacteria in the human mouth increased dramatically after a specific event. That event was the widespread adoption of the agricultural revolution across human societies. Before humans invented farming, ancient hunter-gatherers consumed a highly varied natural diet. Their daily meals consisted of tough roots, wild berries, lean meats, diverse nuts, and fibrous leaves. The complex ecosystem of bacteria thriving in their ancient mouths perfectly reflected that incredible dietary diversity. However, after agriculture was invented, everything changed for the human mouth. Humans abruptly shifted to a diet heavily reliant on cultivated grains and highly refined carbohydrates. This massive dietary shift caused the populations of cavity-causing bacteria to absolutely skyrocket. In other words, ancient hunter-gatherers did not necessarily practice better oral hygiene routines than we do. They simply consumed vastly superior, unprocessed foods that naturally protected their dental health. The harsh reality is that the exact moment humans invented bread, they simultaneously invented the dental cavity. But it is also a misconception to believe that ancient humans completely ignored their dental care. Compelling archaeological evidence suggests that ancient people actively utilized specialized small sticks for oral hygiene. They specifically favored sticks that were frayed at one end to meticulously clean the tight spaces between their teeth. We have unearthed these fascinating ancient dental tools at numerous archaeological sites across Africa and the Middle East. Astonishingly, some of these rudimentary tools date back hundreds of thousands of years into our distant past. The traditional chewing stick, often crafted from specific trees like the neem or the miswak, holds a scientific secret. These specific types of wood contain potent natural antibacterial compounds that actively destroy harmful mouth bacteria. Rigorous modern scientific studies have actually confirmed the remarkable efficacy of these ancient botanical tools. Researchers found that some of these natural chewing sticks work nearly as effectively as a standard modern toothbrush. Our ancestors did not understand the complex organic chemistry behind why these sticks worked so perfectly. They simply observed that chewing on certain types of twigs left their mouths feeling wonderfully fresh and clean. So they established a habit and continuously used these natural tools generation after generation. Now, we must transition to a topic that is genuinely uncomfortable for modern people to think about. We need to have a very honest discussion about the pungent reality of human body odor. Here is an uncomfortable physiological truth that might completely change how you view your own sweat. You actually do not smell nearly as repulsive as you think you do when you occasionally skip a morning shower. The biological fluid that triggers human body odor is not actually the sweat itself. Fresh human sweat is composed almost entirely of simple water and dissolved trace salts. When it first leaves your pores, sweat is essentially completely odorless to the human nose. What actually causes you to project a foul stench is a microscopic biological process happening on your skin. Billions of bacteria living on the surface of your skin consume the complex compounds hidden within your sweat. As these bacteria relentlessly digest your sweat, they excrete volatile waste products into the surrounding air. These microscopic bacterial waste products are the true source of what we recognize as offensive body odor. The specific strains of bacteria responsible for the absolute worst smells congregate primarily in two hidden regions. They thrive in the warm, damp environments found in your armpits and your groin areas. These bacteria absolutely flourish in the exact microclimates that most modern humans artificially create every single day. We foster these bacterial colonies by wearing the exact same unwashed, restrictive clothing for hours in warm temperatures. Ancient humans, however, lived in much smaller, tightly knit nomadic groups. They spent the vast majority of their time outdoors, surrounded by constantly moving fresh air. Because of this natural lifestyle, the overall bacterial balance on their exposed skin was fundamentally different from ours. Modern microbiological research into isolated indigenous communities reveals something truly fascinating about the human skin microbiome. People who have never used synthetic soap or modern deodorants possess a completely unique ecosystem of skin bacteria. This ancient bacterial ecosystem is not necessarily worse than ours. It is just entirely different. Through the aggressive daily use of antibacterial soap, modern humans have essentially wiped out massive populations of skin flora. Many of those microscopic organisms were actually performing incredibly useful biological tasks for our ancestors. They actively protected the skin against dangerous external pathogens and naturally regulated the body's delicate pH levels. Even without understanding the complex science, ancient humans practically utilized aromatic plants to manage their scent. Compelling archaeological evidence shows that our ancestors frequently rubbed crushed mint, lavender, juniper, and sage onto their skin. They likely did this primarily to repel annoying insects, but the undeniable secondary effect was a natural woodland fragrance. They essentially smelled like the pristine forest, which was perfectly natural in a world entirely covered by wild forests. Human hair, however, presents a genuinely complicated hygiene challenge when you completely remove modern shampoo from the equation. If left completely alone, your scalp initially overproduces heavy oils because it is desperately trying to compensate for daily stripping. But ancient humans never initiated that damaging cycle of stripping and overproduction in the first place. Their natural scalps calmly produced essential oils at a steady rate, perfectly calibrated for a wild, shampoo-free existence. To keep their hair manageable and free of painful tangles, They relied heavily on meticulous physical combing. Archaeologists have discovered intricate hair combs carved from animal bone and wood dating back more than 10,000 years. Beyond just basic detangling, ancient people painstakingly picked through each other's hair to remove tiny lice and dangerous parasites. Anthropologists call this behavior social grooming, and it was actually one of the primary bonding mechanisms of early humanity. This deeply intimate physical act of grooming required tremendous trust, close proximity, and a significant investment of daily time. The common historical misconception that ancient humans were absolutely terrified of water and never bathed is completely false. Nomadic hunter-gatherers purposefully lived near rivers and freshwater lakes, and they actively used them to wash their bodies. They simply lacked synthetic soap, which did not appear in human history until ancient Babylon around 2800 BCE. Instead of chemical soaps, they utilized highly effective natural alternatives like fine abrasive sand and grease-cutting wood ash. Fine clay was also frequently applied to the skin and then carefully rinsed off to naturally draw out excess oils. Finally, we must address the ultimate hygiene question that everyone privately wonders about regarding our ancient ancestors. When it came to toilet habits, ancient humans naturally dealt with it exactly the same way every other wild animal does. However, multiple archaeological sites clearly show that they were significantly smarter and more organized about this biological necessity. Researchers have found designated latrine areas specifically separated from their sleeping quarters and food preparation zones. This simple act of spatially separating human waste from living areas is arguably the most critical public health behavior ever invented. Ancient nomadic hunter-gatherers naturally avoided the horrific sanitation catastrophes that would later devastate crowded medieval cities. For over 300,000 years, our resourceful ancestors kept themselves remarkably clean enough to survive and thrive. They successfully built complex cultures, intimate relationships, and sophisticated languages without a single manufactured chemical product. Your ancient ancestors were not inherently dirty. They were simply surviving and adapting using an entirely different set of natural tools. And as modern science is now discovering, some of those ancient tools were actually far better than we ever gave them credit for.